guys, and welcome back to another 31 Days of Halloween recap. If you thought I was tired in the last video, I'm even more tired now. Oh, I just want to spend all my day sleeping. Watching all these movies is absolutely killing me, but as of right now, I am past the halfway mark, so it's nearly over. I'm so happy that it's nearly over, but I seem to have entered a crap streak where films in the H and I and a little bit of J, yeah, and a little bit of G, yeah, somewhere in that group I ended up coming up with a lot of shit movies. But hopefully that's going to improve. So anyway, today I am recapping films 60 to 89 of my marathon, so let's get into it. Film number 60 is Fright Night, a 1985 American horror film written and directed by Tom Holland, not the Spider-Man dude, in his directorial debut. The film follows young Charlie Brewster, who discovers that his next-door neighbor, Jerry Dandridge, is a vampire. When no one believes him, Charlie decides to get Peter Vincent, a TV show host who acted in films as a vampire hunter, to stop Jerry's killing spree. Okay, now this was a fun vampire movie. I'd seen the remake, but not the original, and honestly, for whatever reason, didn't think I'd like it, but this movie is awesome. I love the vampire makeup for this movie, mostly because it's so far removed from what the norm of what we expect for vampires, though it did kind of remind me of the Demons and Demon Knights, which I also like. Some of the vampire powers and characteristics are different, which I also like. It changes it up, but not too much, just enough where it's familiar but also stands out. This was a ton of fun, but all vampires out there, I hope y'all know hypnosis doesn't count as consent. Number 61, Fright Night Part 2, a 1988 American horror film directed by Tommy Lee Wallace and written by Wallace, Tim Metcalf, and Miguel Taja Flores. It is the sequel to the 1985 film and focuses on Charlie Brewster, who, now a college student, encounters a group of vampires led by a beautiful woman who is seeking him out. This is a pretty decent sequel, and it's well thought out and a good continuation of the previous film, and I like how the two connect. It's not as good as the first one, but it is still decent, but it doesn't feel as memorable as the first either. Number 62, Fright Night, a 2011 American horror comedy film directed by Craig Gillespie with a screenplay by Marty Noxon. It's a remake of the 1985 film of the same name and follows a teenage boy who discovers that his neighbor is actually a vampire, which culminates in a battle between the two. It's not a terrible film, but I'm honestly not a fan. I don't particularly like many of the changes made for the remake, and some of the things they kept don't make sense for the remake. They made this version darker, but in making it darker, it made the comedy feel out of place and unnecessary. I just find it hard to stay engaged in this film. I also didn't enjoy how much of a sexual predator they made Jerry in this film, though I am happy to learn Colin Farrell didn't like that about his character either and made protests that went unheard. I did think it was cool having Chris Sarandon make a cameo in this, though. That was pretty neat. Number 63, Fright Night 2, New Blood, a 2013 American comedy horror film directed by Eduardo Rodriguez and written by Matt Vinny. It is a direct-to-video sequel to the 2011 remake of the 1985 film, and in it, Charlie and Evil Ed must stop a vampire-slash-sexy professor from drinking and bathing in the blood of a new moon virgin, which just so happens to be Charlie's ex-girlfriend Amy. They enlist help from Peter Vincent, the vampire hunter host of a reality show called Fright Night, to drive a stake through Jerry's plan and save Amy from a fate far worse than death. If this was its own film, I would say it's kind of cool, especially because I've always been fascinated by the story of Elizabeth Bathory, and so I enjoy when films depict her, and I think making her a vampire and the way this film did so is interesting. But, and it's a big but, how in the hell can you call this Fright Night 2 when it is not remotely a sequel to the remake in anything but the title? It's actually a remake of the remake, which has me kind of pissed off. We have the same character names, all new actors, all new story. Jerry is now a woman, and Elizabeth Bathory on top of that. Evil is alive again, so he can be killed again. How did they get away with calling this Fright Night 2? Seriously. Actually, this isn't just a remake, it's a reboot, and I don't know how they got away with it. On the plus side, I do love Jamie Murray. She is gorgeous, and I love when she plays sadistic characters because she does them so incredibly well. The film did copy a couple ideas from the first film, however, like the clocks, for example. Number 64, The Frighteners, a 1996 horror comedy film directed by Peter Jackson and written by Jackson and Fran Walsh. After a tragic car accident that kills his wife, a man discovers he can communicate with the dead to con people. However, when a demonic spirit appears, he may be the only one who can stop it from killing the living and the dead. So this movie was awesome. I've heard about this movie for years, but I never bothered with it, a choice I am now regretting because this was a bloody brilliant film. I had such a blast with this. I admit I didn't remotely like or see the purpose of the FBI agent, but I don't even care. I just love this movie and I'm totally going to rewatch this at some point. But now that I think about it, I think I may have seen it before, but I'm not quite sure. Maybe I've seen bits of it, but either way, I loved it. Number 65, The Gate, a 1987 Canadian-American supernatural horror film directed by Tibor Takacs and written by Michael Nankin. The film follows two young boys who accidentally release a horde of demons from their backyard through a large hole in the ground. Utterly boring, nothing happens for 40 minutes, and then when stuff does happen, it's either boring as hell or just stupid, but some moments are stupid enough to make you chuckle, but not in a good way. This movie is not good, and perhaps I'm wrong, but during one scene, it looked as though the two boys were watching Cannibal Holocaust. I hope I'm wrong, but that's what it looked like, which would be super messed up. Number 66, Ghostbusters, a 1984 American fantasy comedy film directed by Ivan Reitman and written by Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis. It follows a trio of eccentric parapsychologists who start a ghost-catching business in New York City. Ghostbusters is a timeless classic. It never gets old or boring. It's the forever good time film, and still amazes me how much of this film was ad-lib. I don't know anyone who can hate this film. Number 67, Ghostbusters 2, a 1989 American fantasy comedy film directed by Ivan Reitman and written by Harold Ramis and Dan Aykroyd. It is the sequel to the 1984 film and is set 5 years after the events of the first film. It follows a quartet of paranormal eliminators who have been sued out of business after the destruction caused during their battle with the demigod Gozer. When a powerful new paranormal threat emerges, the Ghostbusters reform to combat it and save the world. Not much I can say about this either. It's still brilliant. It's great having the old gang back together. It's very rare for sequels to live up to the first film. I say it all the time and I say it because it's true, but this is one of those times where the sequel lives up to its predecessor and is still a damn good time. You can't ask for more, though there are only minor things I don't like. Number 68, Ghostbusters, also known as Ghostbusters Answer the Call, a 2016 American supernatural comedy film directed by Paul Feig and written by Feig and Katie Dippold. It serves as a reboot of the 1984 film and focuses on 4 women and their assistant who begin a ghost-catching business in New York City. I haven't watched this in a while and thought maybe third or fourth time around I wouldn't love it as much as I did the first time, but nope, I still freaking love this movie. Absolutely cracks me up. I have so much fun watching this. The jokes haven't worn out with me. I love the references scattered throughout the film. I love the cameos. I love the visuals. Man, I just love this movie, so suck it. Number 69, Ghosts of Mars, a 2001 American science fiction action horror film directed by John Carpenter and written by Carpenter and Larry Selkis. In 2176, a Martian police unit is sent to pick up a highly dangerous criminal at a remote mining post. Upon arriving, the cops find that the post has become a charnel house. Hard no from me. How does Natasha Henstridge always end up in these kind of movies? It's saddening because she's a really good actress. She just ends up in a lot of crap. And this was indeed crap. Not one thing I liked about it, and the leader of the Martians looks like a cross between Wishmaster and Vincent D'Onofrio in The Cell. Even good filmmakers have bad films, can't be perfect all the time I guess. I'm also super surprised to see a film where Statham still had hair. Number 70, The Gift, a 2000 American supernatural thriller film directed by Sam Raimi and written by Billy Bob Thornton and Tom Epperson. The film is based on the alleged psychic experience of Thornton's mother. I think this is a supernatural thriller that still holds up 19 years later. Some great performances throughout this film. It's interesting, though predictable and intense, yet easy to swallow. Just an overall good film, which makes me more interested when knowing Thornton based it on his mother. Number 71, Ginger Snaps, a 2000 Canadian horror film directed by John Fawcett and written by Fawcett and Karen Walton. The film focuses on 2 teenage sisters who have a fascination with death. It's an interesting little film and very well done. I think this takes some different avenues compared to other films featuring the subject of werewolves, and that's what made me stay focused on the film. I also like how there's more than just a story about becoming a werewolf, but a story about the bond between 2 sisters, and a not so healthy one at that. Will say I hated how the film depicted the subject of a girl's first period, and even more so how these girls reacted to it. It's just insane. It's also a strange common occurrence I'm finding in horror films. So we had it in Ginger Snaps, you can also find it in Carrie. It's another film that I've also watched this month called Housewife, which is from Turkey, I think. And it's just, they're all depicting young women having their period for the first time and not knowing what the fuck it is or what's happening to them, and one of their parents absolutely losing their shit. And there are other films like it, I just can't name them off the top of my head, but I don't know why horror films continue to do this. It's freaking weird. Like, does this actually happen? I'm serious. Did somebody have that kind of reaction their first time, and did somebody's parent try to kill them for it? Like, I would like to know. Number 72, Ginger Snaps 2 Unleashed, also known as Ginger Snaps 2 or Ginger Snaps Unleashed, is a 2004 Canadian horror film directed by Brett Sullivan and written by Megan Martin, and the sequel to the 2000 film and the second installment in the series. In it, Ginger's sister Bridget, now a werewolf herself, must try to find a cure for her bloodlust before the next full moon, while hiding out in a rehab clinic from a relentless werewolf. Not a fan of this sequel. The only thing about this plot that makes sense is Bridget trying to stop her transformation. A male wolf hunting her makes no sense. Okay, it wants to mate with her, but how did it even find her? Where did it come from? Also, her being in rehab is stupid as hell. She was found passed out with needle marks, so they lock her in a rehab she can't get out of. That makes no goddamn sense. She hadn't committed a crime, there wasn't any real proof she was a junkie, they had no reason or legal right to lock her in a rehab facility, they gave her a drug test that tested negative for drugs and positive for poison, and most one could say she was trying to kill herself. There was just no logical or legal or moral reason for this storyline. Number 73, Ginger Snaps Back, The Beginning, a 2004 Canadian horror film directed by Grant Harvey and written by Stephen Massacoti and Christina Ray. It's a prequel to Ginger Snaps and the third and final installment in the Ginger Nap series. Set in 19th century Canada, Bridget and her sister Ginger take refuge in a trader's fort, which later becomes under siege by some savage werewolves. Originally, when I saw the titles for these Ginger Snap films, I thought that the first film would involve two girls discovering they were from a long line of werewolves. I especially thought that because this film is called a prequel, but I was very wrong, and while this film is set in the past, I would not call it a prequel. It has the same two sisters as the first film, but it's an entirely different story, and the characters are not related to the characters in the previous film. It's more like they just decided to do a new Ginger Snaps film and just decided to set it during the 19th century. I do admit that the setting of the film and the subject go very well together and make a great deal of sense, but I will also say the dialogue has not been made to fit in a 19th century setting all that well. Instead, most of it is still taken from the 21st century, which is something that annoys me in period films. It's a pretty decent film, it's just a very strange decision to go with the series. Number 74, The Ginger Dead Man, a 2005 American horror comedy film directed by Charles Band and written by William Butler and Dominic Muir. The film follows Ginger Dead Man, created from a mix of gingerbread spice mix and the ashes of deceased serial killer Millard Findelmeyer, who terrorizes a small-town bakery. I thought this would be hilarious, dumb fun, just like Attack of the Killer Donuts, which was hilarious, dumb fun, by the way. But again, I was wrong. Turned out to be just idiotic and boring. Even dumb films like Attack of the Killer Donuts try to have a way for the story to make some kind of sense. This doesn't. It tries to tell you the events were on purpose, but everything happens accidentally, so the two cancel each other out. It's just boring as hell. You can figure out how it all happens just with common sense and putting two and two together, but the film never actually explains, which is just irritating. Number 75, Ginger Dead Man 2, Passion of the Crust, a 2008 horror comedy film directed by Sylvia St. Croix and written by Muffy Balding, William Butler and Aaron Strongoni, and is the second installment in the Ginger Dead Man series. The horrifying yet delicious and chewy Ginger Dead Man causes murder and mayhem on the set of a horrible low-budget movie set. This is bad. So bad. I couldn't even laugh. It was just absolutely god-awful and way worse than the first film. Only good thing about this film is the title. I mean, the title is hilarious and awesome. The film is not. Number 76, Ginger Dead Man 3, Saturday Night Cleaver, originally called Ginger Dead Man 3, Role of Boogeyman, a 2011 American sci-fi horror comedy film directed by William Butler and written by Butler and Muffy Bolding, and is the third installment in the Ginger Dead Man series. In it, the Ginger Dead Man travels back in time to 1976 and carries out an epic disco killing spree. This was so much worse! I didn't think it could get worse, but it did. It's barely even about Ginger Dead Man. It's far more a film spoofing Silence of the Lambs and then Carrie, and a little bit of Saturday Night Fever, and some other stuff, and then shoved into one shitty ass film. I have a headache from having to endure this, like seriously. Number 77, Ginger Dead Man vs. Evil Bong, a 2013 American horror comedy film directed by Charles Band and written by Kent Rodebush. It is a crossover between the Ginger Dead Man series and the Evil Bong series, and is the fourth installment in the Ginger Dead Man series and the fourth film in the Evil Bong series. In it, the Ginger Dead Man seeks revenge against Sarah Lee for causing him to live his life in the body of a gingerbread man. Her only hope is to team up with Lionel, who has problems of his own in the form of a magical talking bong named Evie. By some miracle, this film isn't as bad as all the others. Don't get me wrong, it's still horrible, but Evil Bong actually makes it watchable by a fraction, which is a sentence I never thought I'd say. Maybe the Evil Bong movies are worth a watch. Leave it to a bong to make things a bit better. Number 78, Halloween Town, a 1998 Disney Channel original movie directed by Dwayne Dunham and written by Paul Birnbaum, John Cooksey, and Ali Matheson. In it, after learning she is a witch, a girl helps save a town full of other supernatural creatures. This movie continues to make me happy and is another October tradition. The Halloween Town series is a must revisit every year. It's also one of my favorite Halloween movies in general. It's fun, light, and really celebrates all things Halloween. Not to mention what makes it as good as it is Debbie Reynolds. She left us these amazing, beautiful, fun family movies that are designed to make people happy, and this makes me so happy. Number 79, Halloween Town 2, Calabar's Revenge, a 2001 Disney Channel original movie directed by Mary Lambert and written by John Cooksey and Ali Matheson. It's the second installment in the Halloween Town series, and in it the Cromwell clan split their time between the mortal world and Halloween Town, but the son of an old rival threatens to make the latter mortal and the mortal world a place of monsters. The perfect sequel that keeps the fun going and still brings something new and moves the story forward without changing the tone, and Debbie is still incredibly fun to watch, and it's great seeing us learn more about the world of Halloween Town and its history. Number 80, Halloween Town High, also known as Halloween Town 3, a 2004 Disney Channel original movie directed by Mark A.Z. Dippy and written by Paul Birnbaum and Daniel Berenstain. It's the third installment in the Halloween Town series and was originally intended to be the last. In it, Marnie Piper prepares to begin a new school year in her new home. She asks the Halloween Town Witches Council to work toward openness between Halloween Town and the mortal world. She proposes to bring a group of Halloween Town students to her own high school in the mortal world. I enjoy this one just as much as the others. Marnie is coming more and more into her magic, though getting more arrogant, and of course Debbie is once again the life of the party. I have a lot of fun with this movie, and like the two before it, it continues to add more to the Halloween Town world and its mythology. Number 81, Return to Halloween Town, also known as Halloween Town 4, Witch U, a 2006 Disney Channel original movie directed by David Jackson and written by Max Ensko, Annie DeYoung, and Paul Birnbaum. It's the fourth and final installment in the Halloween Town series, and in it, Marnie and Dylan are going to follow their dreams to go to college at Halloween Town University, which is also known as Witch University. Aside from the fact they changed the actress playing Marnie so unnecessarily, despite the original actress being more than happy to reprise her role, the story is just off. Marnie is written as less experienced and far more childlike instead of more mature, which she should be, and the new actress is acting, well, kinda stinks. Most of the students at Witch University dress like humans, which is not something anyone has ever done in Halloween Town, so this makes no sense. Being that some of Marnie's grandmother's past is revealed in this movie, it upsets me that they didn't use Debbie more and explain her past more. It is a very silly choice to bring up something if you're not going to dive below the surface, and what they do include seems contradictory to the mythology and events seen and mentioned in previous movies. Its use of time travel also means the entire story and the history history of Halloween Town has been screwed with and no longer makes sense. Ultimately, this is still entertaining. It's got the classic magical aspects that we are used to from the other movies and is perfect for Halloween, but it is a step down from the previous movies, and the more I watch it, the more the flaws bug me. Number 82, Happy Birthday to Me, a 1981 Canadian psychological slasher film directed by J. Lee Thompson and written by Timothy Bond, Peter Jobin, John Saxon, and John Beard. The plot revolves around 6 brutal murders occurring around a popular high school senior's birthday. Between Curtains and this, I'm starting to think Canadian slasher films of the 80s just didn't know how to construct their plots. We're an hour into the film before it mentions the main character's upcoming birthday, but still until then, and even after it's mentioned, the relevance of said birthday never appears. It seems more coincidental, makes you ask what the point of the title is. I'm watching this film where people are dying, but it's just all appearing random and nonsensical, and no one even seems aware anyone is dying, so with no one on screen caring, it's impossible for anyone in the audience to care either. The final reveal and explanation just makes the point of the film harder to understand. Why was the birthday relevant? Why did they wait 4 years? What did murdering all those people have to do with their reasoning or motivation? This film doesn't make any sense whatsoever. This was just dull and very poorly thought out. A 2012 English-language Italian supernatural horror film written and directed by Christian Bisceglia and Ascanio Malgarini. In it, a single mother moves into a new house with her daughter. Soon after the young girl has her first baby tooth fall off, she begins to recount that she is having nocturnal visits by a tooth fairy. It seems the house has a sinister history. Boring and dull with a poorly constructed plot with a minor interesting twist at the end, though sadly lacks impact due to the blandness of the rest of the film. The fact the film is filled with boring, might even say bad performances, don't help things either. Considering this was my first film of the morning of day 12, I was almost instantly put back to sleep. Number 84, Haunting on Fraternity Row, a 2018 American supernatural horror film directed by Brant Simpson and written by Jeff Kahn. It follows a fraternity house that throws their final party of the year, a massive luau extravaganza, but when fraternity brothers and co-eds begin dying horrible deaths, they discover an evil entity has taken over the house. It's kind of found footage-esque and oddly enough not in a terrible way. It's actually got some great performances, but it's not scary and it feels more like a teen drama than a horror film. Focuses far more on college kids partying, hooking up, breaking up, and all that stuff than it does on the demon loose in the building. With only one person believing or taking any interest in the matter, there's nothing to really guide the story or make it a proper horror film. The performances make it a watchable film, well, except that one performance at the end, but it's not the best film in the world, but it's far from the worst either. Number 85, Havana Darkness, a 2018 American thriller film directed by Guillermo Ivan with a screenplay by Barry Keating from a story by Loris Kirchi, Magardich, Halvajin, and Ivan. In it, 3 friends are thrust into a terrifying game of cat and mouse when they find themselves trapped inside an abandoned building nestled in the center of the country's vibrant capital. Absolutely god-awful. I don't even think this film knows what it wants to be. The opening scene looked promising, but then we spend half an hour listening to someone talk about Hemingway, and then suddenly out of nowhere we're in a building where people are trapped and being hunted in a very slow, drawn-out and poorly acted manner. Some pretty poor editing in this film to top it off. This was so boring that at one point I stopped watching and went and cooked butter chicken. The butter chicken was very yummy, thank you for asking. This film has maybe 5 endings, I lost count. It fades to black several times, and each time you think the film has ended, but nope, there's yet another pointless scene. Think Escape Room, but in Cuba and with a theme about Hemingway. Number 86, Hellfest, a 2018 American slasher film directed by Gregory Plotkin from a screenplay by Seth M. Sherwood, Blair Butler, and Akela Cooper from a story by William Pennick, Christopher Say, and Stephen Susko. It follows a group of teens who are stalked by a serial killer while visiting a traveling Halloween carnival. I thought after everything I heard about this film, I'd hate it, but I didn't hate it at all. It was a pretty decent slasher film. It's hardly a new or original concept, but I thought it was good enough. I still love Bloodfest way more though. Number 87, Hell House LLC 3, Lake of Fire, a 2019 American horror film written and directed by Stephen Cognetti. It's the 3rd installment in the Hell House LLC series, and in it, the Abaddon Hotel will once again be opening to the public. Russell Wynn has taken his audience interactive show Insomnia into the abandoned hotel that is rumored to be haunted. Sadly, I'm disappointed. It had a couple of interesting moments and one heart-pounding moment, but it completely lost me with the third act. The third act was just more of what happened at the end of the second film, and that was all the stuff I hated. The third act of this film kind of ruined it for me, so while it's mildly better than the second film, it's still nowhere near as good or scary as the first film. I wasn't a fan of the direction it took during the second film and hoped it would move away from that with this film, but unfortunately, no. Number 88, Hell of a Night, a 2019 American horror thriller film written and directed by Brian Childs. In it, after moving to a new town, a young college student retreats to the country for a weekend of solace when she quickly finds out that she is not alone and needs to fight for her life. Oh, yikes. I've seen many low-budget independent films that have wowed me, and this wowed me alright. It wowed me by how truly awful it was. This felt like a media class project from 9th grade. The script, if there even was one, was atrocious. It was as though 3 people wrote different scripts and cut and pasted scenes together to make one script, as it's as though there are 3 different stories and they all suck. There's supernatural that doesn't feel supernatural, and revenge that doesn't feel like revenge, nor should it even be there. The opening scene barely connects with the rest of the film, and it's just another offensive and idiotic depiction of Ouija. Most of the actors can barely deliver a line, and all of them deliver their lines in the same monotone voice. It doesn't help that the audio for the film makes it seem as though the audio and video were 2 separate recordings and someone poorly spliced them together, but I did learn that more than 80% of the film's audio had to be redone and replaced, so that would explain it. The revenge element is the worst part. A girl goes and kills her boyfriend and plans to rob and have her best friend murdered because she read a text from her friend to him that said, "Lol, sorry Tommy." Okay, 1, those words don't mean anything. They certainly don't mean an affair. 2, no one, and I mean no one, reads just one message. You read them all. Had she done that, she'd have seen her boyfriend tried to sext her friend, she rejected his ass repeatedly, and that was it. Point is, those 3 boring benign words in no way warrant a revenge spree. Then combining that with the supernatural crap, and then while I was at it throwing in the threat of rape, just bad moves all over. If there was a list of things not to do in a horror film or any film, this film would have ticked them all off. Last on this list is number 89, He's Out There, a 2018 American horror film directed by Quinn Lasher and written by Mike Scannell. On vacation at a remote lake house, a mother and her 2 young daughters must fight for survival after falling into a terrifying and bizarre nightmare conceived by a psychopath. A modern day horror film that I could really sink my teeth into. Great tension, great suspense, and for the most part stays away from the typical. Watching this, I made all the wrong assumptions. I assumed no way something would happen to the kids. Wrong! Kids are the first to fall prey to the psycho. I thought they'd do nothing at all to the mum because she's the kid's only protector. Wrong there too. I thought they'd have some guy come and save the day as per usual. Wrong there too. I made an assumption on who the psycho was. Yup, wrong there too. I made a lot of wrong calls with this because it's a 2018 horror film on Netflix, and those tend to follow all the typical tropes and plot structures, so I was very surprised and impressed when it didn't. I really loved this film, definitely had my creep meter going off and the heart pounding a few times. I did find the children very annoying though. Someone's trying to kill them, and when mom said be quiet and not make a sound, they yelled out questions to her if she told them to do as she said so they'd be safe. Nope, they screamed and resisted, which of course would give away their location. Those kids frustrated me. They were old enough to understand if you make a loud noise you'll die, so don't make noises, but that didn't stop them. Nevertheless, I like their inclusion because it raises the stakes and makes it harder for the mom because she has to get them out, but at the same time she can't leave her children alone. Having them there makes it harder for her to fight back, so it was smart. And that is my part 3 31 Days of Halloween recap done. Man, these recaps are exhausting. Like, they're about as exhausting as doing the marathon, and trying to do both of them is draining me super fast. But anyway, I'm nearly done watching the amount of films that would add up to recap part 4. I've slacked off a little last couple days. Yesterday I'd mostly slept. That's how exhausted I am. But I'm hoping I'll still be able to get all the films finished that I want to get finished. Remember, the goal is 205. I have now watched 107, 109. So let's see if I can if I can do it. But thank you to everybody who has been following my progress on social media and has been watching all my Spooktober content on YouTube. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for the support. It is keeping me sane and it is also keeping me going. I really need it, so thank you guys so much. So comment down below, tell me some of the films you have been watching this October, and thank you as always to my amazing patrons. I appreciate your support, and I've got to go watch more movies now, so until next time, bye!